for people who would like to see Israel continue to exist, last year's U.S. presidential election was, um, it just on that one issue, pretty clear cut. It was pretty certain that a Kamala Harris presidency would have resulted in the state of Israel ceasing to exist and in presumably the most horrific way imaginable, even if not during her presidency. At some point, what 4 years of an anti-Israel U.S. president would have done in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, and while the uh, you know Israel's enemies are all in for the war, it was also it was not as if Trump was some massively pro-Israel candidate, and more importantly, Trump changes his mind based on the last person he spoke to. So any support of his for Israel is not something you can count on long term. Well, we've seen that during his time in office. Absolutely, he's been more favorable to Israel than anything Harris would have done. But we've seen moments where it is absolutely shocking how open he is to dealing with terrorists, to supporting terrorists, and now he has taken it a step further. Not now, this was last week. There was a UN resolution, UN Security Council resolution, a US, what, this week?
this week.
Earlier this week, a UN Security Council resolution that had 20 points about the ceasefire, but also included a path to a Palestinian state. Again, this is 2 years after the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. If you look at the Nuremberg trials, which I will at some point do a whole episode about because I think that was the moment where the West decided we should never ever win a war again. But at no point were the Nazis offered a state as a reward for for what they had done. But times have changed. Yeah, Trump is super friendly with many of Israel's enemies and is becoming friendly with more of them at the expense of Israel. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel.
I mean, a few things to just mention at the start about this Security Council resolution. I mean, well, specifically about Trump. I mean, just look at the pragmatism, right? It's, we go after the UN. UN is bad. We'll sanction a bunch of people coming to the UN, like Francesca Albanese. We'll pull out of the Human Rights Council. All good decisions, all right decisions that should absolutely happen. And then, oh, vote for our UN Security Council resolution because that's what we need. That's, because UN is good. It's like this amount of pragmatism. I've talked about it last week. It's just disgusting. Like there are no ideas, there are no principles. It's just whatever works, and even the whatever works part isn't really there because what are you even like trying to achieve there? And when it comes to like specifically the resolution itself, right? It's look at who is voting with you, right? It's a bunch of dictatorships to large extent, or at the very least, you have the sanctions of dictatorships because Russia and China could have voted against it, and they decided to not to because they know what this is. Again, like if you are doing anything, and you go like, hell yeah, let's do this, and then you have a bunch of people you hate being happy about what you're doing, you should be for a second like, oh, wait, why are you happy? I thought I'm going against you. You shouldn't be happy. So, when this ceasefire came about, look at which people were cheering. Palestinians were cheering, Arab states were cheering, pro-Hamas people in the West were cheering. So that should like stop you for a second to see, okay, what is actually happening. This might not be, this might not be good for Israel, unless you, of course, believe the Hamas, Palestinians, Arab states, and pro-Hamas Western supporters suddenly care about Israel to live in peace, or that this will result in Israel living in peace, and that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, been very busy, but back now. New York City has gone woke. Welcome back, PC. I disagree with how broadly you use the term woke. I think in The people whose gender changes throughout the day will not be happy if Mamdani gets to do everything he wants to do. But yeah, it has gone full evil. And I've been thinking about like Mamdani wasn't born in the US, so this can't actually happen. But when Trump prepares his run for third term, the logical vice presidential nominee is Mamdani. They are on the same page on so many things, some of which we are gonna talk about now. So, yeah, Daniel, you mentioned look at who's supporting this, and I agree with you. I mean, you should always, judge a proposal or a policy on its merits, uh, but you get a good indication of what it might be or whether or not it might be good or bad based on who is for it and who is against it. And again, Algeria, Russia, China, th these are the countries who are in the Security Council, and this passed. So that should tell you something. But let's go into a bit of the content here. One thing that's interesting here is the International Peacekeeping Force. I mean, we knew this as a part of it. We've talked about it before, but it's fascinating how, people really think doing the same thing. And I don't even think they really think this will work, but claim that doing the same thing that has failed so many times. I mean, Lebanon has an international peacekeeping force. That's UN people from around the world hanging out with Hezbollah and then crying when Israel defends itself. I mean, we actually see from time to time people saying, "Oh, Israel bombed a UN post in Lebanon." Nobody asks why. Nobody asks what's going on there because you don't need to ask. If Israel does something, it is immediately to be condemned. But yeah, this is all going through the UN. You know, the, we know about their peacekeeping forces, not just in Lebanon, where the UN tries to keep the peace. There is no peace, and there's usually tyranny. But when the UN tries to do anything, bad things happen. So, Gaza has been run essentially by a UN agency in large part, and that agency is very indistinguishable from Hamas. So, yeah, Trump should know better. By the way, this international peacekeeping force is going to be made up of current dictatorships and future dictatorships, and countries that do not want, in many cases, countries that do not want Israel to exist. It's very difficult for me to see how this is not going to be a complete disaster before we even talk about a path to Palestinian statehood. A disaster just having all these people in Gaza, helping out the local population. Again, if they want to make the life of the local population better by the standards of the local population, they should help them figure out how to kill more Jews because that is what they want out of life.
Well, by the way, first on the Trump's third term, do you want to join on a bet? Me and James have a bet if he'll run for a third term. Do you want to join on that?
I am betting that he will. Who's betting what?
I am for the will side. James is for the will not side. And actually, it has a stipulation. Even if he just goes for the Republican National Convention, even if he just joins that, that fulfills my running for a third term. So okay, we can.
Well, for me, there's another point, which is I'm not certain that he's going to try to run. He might not try to run. He might just not leave office. I mean, there's
We
no
already
doubt that
tried that.
Trump would love to be a dictator with unlimited power, and there's all sorts of things in his way that prevent it. The Constitution and the enforcement of the Constitution, the different parts of the U.S. government, and when he is talking about, he doesn't say drain the swamp as much, but he is, doing his thing in all these different agencies, getting rid of people who he doesn't want there, who might, have a mind of their own, might question things. So yeah. It's also important to remember Trump, he talks a lot about Democrats, but Trump is not just against the Democrats, of whom he has been one most of his life. He is against whatever remnants there were of, free market, uh, like national security thinking in America, like John Bolton. So yeah, Yeah, PC, thank you for the super chat. He says Razi third terms are barred since 1951. Yes, that is why there was even a question. Otherwise, of course, he would run. And let me just say that PC sent another super chat. Thank you. He says, at least he's barred from presidency. He's not natural born. That's about Mamdani. Yeah, but things change. And thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat.
Yeah, and again, PC says he cannot legally. On January 6th, he couldn't legally force his like vice president to submit like full slate of electors to get him to get him elected instead. It's like who's gonna enforce that? That's what at the end of it happened. So, well, I guess we'll see. I wish we wouldn't have to, but let's go back to the UN soldiers. Again, like even when we are talking about Israel or the surrounding region, it's not like we have to go to Africa to look at the UN peacekeeping forces or to somewhere else. It's no, the peacekeeping forces were in Egypt and in Lebanon. What did they do there? In Egypt, they were supposed to, protect the border between Egypt and Israel. And when Egypt wanted to invade Israel, they just went to the peacekeeping forces and said, "Hey, that's okay. Can you get out of the country now? We don't need you anymore." And then they, invaded. In Lebanon, they were there for 20 years. They just got, a few months ago, they got their mandate extended for another year. I have no idea why they're still there even. But they were in south of Lebanon for 20 years, and somehow they just didn't see Hezbollah at any point there. Hezbollah was able to set up October 7th like infrastructure basically close to the border where if Hezbollah launched an attack, they had supplies and they could just run and plunder the north of Israel to their as much as they would want. And UNIFIL, they took a wrong. They took a different path to work every day and just haven't seen Hezbollah a single time. So, and again, we are even when we are talking about the UNIFIL forces, this it's not like UNIFIL forces were just like were actually like Hezbollah members or even from Lebanon. It was like countries around the world. European countries were in UNIFIL. I think the biggest part was like Indonesia. So you had a bunch of different nations, and it still didn't do anything. So talking about Gaza with the idea that we know it could be Turkish troops, it could be maybe not Qatari troops because it's a small nation, but Qatari funding, which is what a lot of nations do instead of sending troops. That could be what is in Gaza. And the idea that those people, that Turkey would want to demilitarize Hamas, de-radicalize Palestinians, do any of that. Again, I always remind people what I don't like radicalized. What made the Palestinian culture violent? It wasn't Hamas, it wasn't PLO, it was UNRWA. It was the UN that made Palestinians what they are today. So trying to say that, if we just bring another organization, it will be better is ridiculous. It will be the same or worse because now you have the UN, right? Thankfully, Israel didn't stop itself from dismantling Hezbollah, even when UNIFIL was there. So hopefully, in the future, since this is the path we are taking, it looks like that there will be peacekeeping forces in Gaza. I hope that the peacekeeping forces being there won't stop Israel from bombing it if necessary, if Hamas is still there.
Yeah, and look, we know if when stuff happens, and it will happen, and when Israel actually does something about stuff, which it does when the stuff happening has results in terms of Israeli deaths, uh, a peacekeeper from Qatar or Turkey dies, and it is, everybody will forget what happened up until that moment. Everybody will forget why there is even a conflict, and people will turn on Israel. But that's we're used to that. Bonnie says, I don't think Trump will be around in 3 more years. Uh, I don't know, but Yair actually says what I was going to say, which is JD Vance will be much worse. Well, I don't know if much worse. JD Vance will be consistently evil. Trump is inconsistently evil. Well, maybe as a person, he's consistently evil. He's inconsistently bad in his policies because he changes his mind based on the latest thing. So sometimes he does good stuff and then quickly reminds us who he really is. So. but yeah, no good options seem to be on the table. I don't think John Bolton will be president in 3 years, although, as I've been saying on this channel for the past few years, with every prediction I make, I really, really hope I'm wrong. Um, there was something here. Itzmin says, uh, what other presidential figure has been working against the Islamists more than Trump in the past? First of all, Trump is president now, and we're judging him as president, not we judged every president when he was president, and we'll continue to do that. I judged, well, not on the channel because we didn't have it yet, but George W. Bush for his weak response for to 9/11, and everybody since. In Trump's case, something else that's been in the news in the last couple of days is him selling F-35s to Saudi Arabia. The remember the country from which 9/11 came out. He's selling them F-35s. He's helping them challenge Israel's military supremacy in the Middle East. Another interesting thing we talked yesterday about was his press conference defending the murder of a unfavorable journalist to the Saudi dictatorship, and then threatening ABC to with revoking their license because they ask him questions that are sometimes difficult to answer. He's also suing the BBC, which is interesting. You know who he isn't suing, who he isn't going after is Al Jazeera. And if you look at what Al Jazeera has to say about Trump, this is a dictatorship channel. It's not a even a government channel in a country like the UK where they have certain standards they need to abide by, but don't really. But it's not like Keir Starmer calls up the director general of the BBC and tells him what's going to be what's going to be the tone of the reporting on a specific story. In Qatar, they absolutely can do that. And do. So yeah, Trump sometimes does good things against Islamic terrorists, and on the other hand, is very much helping them uh, work against America, even inside America.
Yeah, and again, this whole like people wouldn't accept Trump's success, and I'm putting that in big quotes, from like their baker of like, oh, like the bread is like good enough. It like it didn't completely crumble in my hands, so I guess I'm just gonna accept it. Like we should demand more from our politicians. Like, what is the one like sizable thing like Trump did? Like one country he resolved. When it comes to Iran, okay, he bombed it, but Iran still has the nuclear sites. It is still developing nuclear weapons. If there is a chance that before Trump even goes away, Iran will be close to developing nuclear bombs again. So he didn't like solve anything there. When it comes to China, he's not doing anything. China will invade Taiwan at some point. Are we ready for it? Is like any infrastructure there? We are refusing to even help Ukraine right now. Again, we could bring in Ukraine to talk about it. Like, I want him to do actually something sizable, some change, some reforms, something good for the better, not just, you know, I guess he's better than the worst of, he's slightly better than the worst of Democrats. And that is like the way we're like judging people by today. It's no, that he should do more. And he isn't doing enough. And he is doing a lot of bad.
You're more optimistic than I am. You want him to do good stuff. I just want him to minimize the bad stuff, at least at the beginning.
Him going to good stuff should be the standard. Like the
Yeah,
standard shouldn't be like, oh, it's like he isn't as bad as he only has minus 950 points instead of 980 points as Democrats do or something like that. It's like, all right, but it's still not good.
thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, I don't like the BBC license. Yeah, I mean, the BBC shouldn't exist. And not because of the content, but because of the fact that people are forced to pay for it. And there's something specifically troubling in the last 2 years about, British Jews being forced to pay for propaganda on why they should be exterminated. But it's also problematic if you're not a Jew, but you also don't think the uh, job that Hitler started should be finished and you're forced to pay for it. So the British people should rise up. At least the rational people, and there are some left in this country, should rise up against the TV license and the funding of the BBC. Channel 4, even though it's not funded through license, is government shouldn't have television channels. Like that should not be a thing, period. Um, yeah. I don't know if I had anything else to. Oh yeah, I did. One of the trolls in the chat says that also U.S. created Al Qaeda. These people love those arguments because we've criticized American and Western foreign policy in the Middle East and beyond many times on this channel. No matter who it is, they look at a conflict, they look at two sides fighting, they determine who is the worst of the two sides, sometimes correctly, and then support the other side when it's because it's not supposedly not as bad. And if you look at the Middle East, leaving aside Israel, if you're supporting a side, you're supporting bad guys. It's near certainty that that is what you're doing, no matter who you're supporting there. So yeah, that's a shame. Is that a reason to say, oh, look, past presidents made this horrible mistake, so we can't work to correct the mistake, and we have to support the doubling down on it by, working with Saudi Arabia and Qatar closer than the Democrats did, and Turkey again, which is it is one of those countries. It may be part of the European Union, may be considered somehow Western friendly, but that is a legacy view of what they are, and not a updated one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what is the exact connection between Al Qaeda and the US government. My understanding was that the US government supported the Afghani Mujahideen against the Soviet Union, which Bin Laden was part of, and Bin Laden was who later founded Al Qaeda, which again is like bad. Yeah, we shouldn't. We argue that all the time. We shouldn't support these dictatorships or even terrorists, or maybe not necessarily terrorist organizations, but like organizations that are fighting against our enemies. And again, the result of that, or sort of the correction to that, is shouldn't be that okay, now we're gonna do the same thing, right? We're gonna support Saudi Arabia to fight against whoever. Again, if America actually fought wars properly, if it fought it to the fullest, we wouldn't need Saudi Arabia in the region. Israel would be more than enough. I think somebody earlier said that America's problems are because they created the military they cannot afford. That again, that is ridiculous. One, America can do more than enough through NATO. The fact that it's selling its arms to NATO, it can handle the big army. Second, I think the big welfare state is a bigger problem to America rather than the military spending, which again is like an actual thing a government should do. I think recently John Stossel released a new video. I recommend checking it out on his channel about the fall of the Roman Empire and the fact that actually welfare was a big part of it. That Roman Empire started instituting more and more welfare until it couldn't handle it. So military is something that America should actually fund. That is not something you can compromise on. When it comes to sort of giving up its weapons, yeah, it shouldn't be two states like Saudi Arabia precisely because like you're giving your own technology. Thankfully, one thing I was scared about, and thankfully this is the past federal law is preventing Trump from doing so. Apparently, there is a federal law that you cannot provide weapons to Middle Eastern nations that are better than Israel. All of them have to be like worse. So the F-35s, because Israel also uses F-35s, but the ones Israel uses, they have their own technology, Israeli technology in their F-35s. The ones that are being given to Saudi Arabia are basically the ones that are just made for export. So Saudi Arabia cannot even like research it, like technology or even like the materials. So thankfully this is a little bit like better, but it's still not good. Again, I don't know, maybe some of them might get lost. Who knows what could happen? And again, if the relationship with Saudi Arabia falls apart at some point, which I think it should, then yeah, we might be getting killed with American weapons.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I take no comfort in the fact that, it could have been worse because this is very, very bad. Yeah, the relationship should fall apart right now. It should have fallen apart before. It should never have been established because you shouldn't have diplomatic relationships uh with dictatorships, period. If they oppress their own people, they are not going to be they're not rational or good people, and you should not help them keep doing what they're doing, which is what you do when you have diplomatic relations with such people. So Itzmin follows up with less U.S. intervention requires allies in the region. I would imagine uh, less U.S. intervention is not the standard. That is not a value. I mean, the value is protecting American lives and American interests, and so the U.S. should intervene where there is a risk. Certainly, militarily intervene where there is a risk to the U.S. There is absolutely a risk to the U.S. in the Middle East, and what they should have done post 9/11, um, I, I don't like the calling it the war on terror, but because you're not identifying who you're actually fighting. But what I do like about it is that it wasn't, you're not saying, okay, we're just going to go after the people who did this. What should have happened is Islamism being a thing of the past, having proven what happens if it's a thing of the present or the future. And America's first targets should have been Iran and Saudi Arabia, not Afghanistan and Iraq. Unfortunately, Bush was all about building a coalition of the willing and getting UN resolutions approving his wars. It's very, very bizarre that the US asks, Guinea and France for their approval before going to war defending itself or responding to an attack on it. So yeah, I would like to see the U.S. intervene as much as needed, and that's how you get overall long term less intervention because there's less of a need for it because nobody's going to rise up or nobody's going to have the ability to rise up against the U.S.
Yeah, and again, one thing that should have been the most important is the fact that Islam is not a religion of peace. Islam should be called out as problematic, and or at the very least, people who believe in Islam should be called out as, call this out. Say this is not part of our religion if you do not agree with it. But we are saying the opposite. We are saying mosques being used to either make Palestinian propaganda or Hamas propaganda or anti-Western propaganda. Generally, the whole culture is anti-Western as it stands right now. And as long as that is the case and that is not being called out, that is a problem. And again, this is not like some like racist attack. This is ideological thing. If people who believe in Islam don't want to be associated with terrorists, don't want to be associated with the violent parts of their religion, they are the ones who need to call it out. They are the ones who need to say, no, this is not us, and we do not, we do not connect with that. But no, instead they go after Israel. They go after Jewish people. Anti-Semitism is rampant in Arabic culture, and not even like a surprise. It just is. Like, I recommend like checking out with finding like a Muslim family or somebody, not like stalk them or something, but like finding or somebody who was formerly Muslim and ask them about like their thoughts or their family's thoughts about Jewish people. It's like incredibly anti-Semitic. It's like a societal thing, and even if that is a problem and that is not being called out, we'll see the results of it, like we might see in New York, for example.
Yeah, and anti-Semitism in Islam is not like something that developed culturally. It is a part of the religion. Like if you're a Muslim and you don't hate Jews, you're not doing it right. That is what the religion is. Let's end with a public service announcement from somebody in the chat. This person says, criticism of Israeli government and its policies is not anti-Semitism, not in all caps. And just before that, the same person says, you guys are really working for those 7,000 shekels. Thank you for your help in understanding what is going on. Yes, PC New York City is in trouble. That is the topic of today's episode of the reality show, which follows this show. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. The reality show starts in a couple minutes.